pull my leggings. I'm pulling these down.
You guys didn't tell me I was going to have to deal with this.
Yo, man, I told you.
I'm not sure why you wear cotton undies underneath tights. Is that a thing in the gym? Maybe we should have spoken about a few of the etiquettes when it comes to running.
Is there etiquette?
Mate, is there etiquette in a gym?
Yeah. What's the first one?
Don't wear baggy tights with, look at them, look at the saggy tights with your cotton undies underneath. No one does that.
So do you go no jocks?
No jocks.
I reckon that's worse.
Mate, look at that.
We're here at the Rams, Moorabbin Rams with Paul Mackinnon, the balance runner. Got a handshake on camera, we have to. Thank you for coming down. We've been chatting for the last 20 minutes, but we'll get the BS handshake. Anyway, we're here, we're transitioning a little bit. We're still pushing heavy weights, but we're trying to run a bit more, and this is, I think, pretty fitting to get someone like Paul down here to teach us how not to move the way we do. So,
what we're going to do today for you, it's you two, yeah, working on your technique rather than doing sprints or anything like that. We're actually going to get an understanding of how you move, but more importantly, I'm going to give you an understanding how you move. Then I'm going to change it. Probably do a little bit more of a demonstration stuff today. So we might go through a couple of changes and see how you can kind of go. But normally I'd just work on one cue at a time. Give yourself time to be able to go off and make it autonomous. Yeah. Before you come back again. So that's kind of how I work.
Sweet. Beautiful.
All right, so I guess the process we'll go through to start with is more about getting you to understand how you currently move. So what I'd get you to do each time is to go out to the far orange cone and back, and we'll go through like parts of the body and explain how they're affecting. We'll use the first one to get an understanding of how you both run and your movement patterns.
Like a slug.
I'll get you to go out to that orange cone and back just at your normal easy pace. So if you were to go out for a run, 2K, 5K, 10, whatever you're doing at the moment, just go out at that easy pace. So to start with, when I've asked them to get an awareness of what their arms are doing, and the things I'm looking for is like what's moving, how are the arms moving, where is the movement coming from, and how does that fit in or correlate to like a good running movement pattern or force directions, that sort of stuff. Just give me an idea or something you just sort of start to pick up on, like what are your arms doing?
I just think of elbows.
Yeah. For
me, like elbows pushing them back. I don't really think about like front side, bring it up. And then I transition between like being tense, and then I remember someone said it to me ages ago, limp wrists.
So, and I think half the bit that you've got right and the kind of the pulling back and the elbows. But what I'm going to get you to do is when you run is like, if you want to think about like what shape does it make when you run? Is it flat? Is it up? Is it, what are you making? And I'm saying hands just because it's the outcome of that movement. You've talked about elbows, which is the right place to think about. But I want you to think about like, where is it moving? Is there anything you noticed or anything you felt or anything that stood out to you?
For me?
Yeah, about your arms, yeah.
I've only just started running again for the last 6 weeks or so. And obviously before that, 5 years ago when I played footy. Now, obviously trying to run more for endurance-based sports. The things I'm thinking about from the little that I've learned is like short strides and limp hands. And having a slight torso lean.
So the third one's probably right.
The third one? Crazy.
For you, what I want you to think about is when you run, I want you to think how much movement is actually coming through this glenohumeral joint. Just think about it. Still run normally, so we haven't changed anything. All this is just self-awareness of current. We'll change it down the track. So you can see like his elbow swing, like doesn't come forward, doesn't even get to the rib cage. And you'll see it's just kind of more like his chest.
I feel like my balls are on show.
And the movement here, Jamie's just flat. Like it's just kind of like this little flat movement. So what do you reckon?
Not much.
Nah, and even you're doing it now, you're starting to do it now where you actually start to kind of using the chest where that's starting to move. Yeah, we want to keep that as still as possible. What did you notice?
I noticed that I just feel like my elbows are the only things that move. Yeah. My hands sort of like stay here.
Yeah, and it's just this and that flat movement. You're not rotating, like there is movement through that glenohumeral joint. Sorry, I forgot the limp wrists. If you restrict movement of the arms, you will restrict movement of the legs. The other thing that occurs is the body will find the counter movement from elsewhere. Yours is a rotation, yours is a flat movement. Like at least it's coming from where you want it to come from, but the movement itself isn't ideal. For both of you, what I want you to feel is when you start running, do you remain in that neutral position or do you extend through thoracic in particular or increase that kind of lumbar curve? I want you to feel, Charlie, I want you to feel that rotation going through there as well. So the two things I want you to feel is you're going to be rotating because you've already felt that started to happen up here. So there has to be a pivot point somewhere. Because hips aren't going to follow, there's going to counter it. So I want you to feel where is the pivot happening and can I feel myself extend or do I stay? So looking at this, Jamie's more actually kind of lower thoracic, lumbar kind of sticks back a little bit. Yep. Whereas Charlie's not too bad. Like he's got a little bit, you can see him trying to block his rotation. He's like, fuck it, he's got put no movement anywhere. And I think I remember speaking to you about this like one of the first times we met or not long after about those planes between hips and ribs. Yeah. Super common in running where like people will, straight away. That's like, oh, I've got to be big chested and that's me running. When it's the complete opposite.
I've had periods of running ages ago where I used to run like that and the low back pump would cut reps short. Yeah, I know, I was big choco. And then a lot of the stuff that we push with breathing, bracing, positioning is all about the ribs down, relative posterior tilt of the pelvis. So I feel like I'm aware enough to not in space. Yep. So I don't know, I felt like I was actually all right.
I was just said to James, yeah, we're not too bad, but it's actually more lower thoracic into lumbar. So this isn't too bad, but it's here where that kind of kicks back a little bit.
Yep.
So you start running and this doesn't flare as much as this kind of kicks back.
Yeah, okay.
So again, it's not about hip focus, it's actually more spine, and that's going to have, you know, implications of range of motion, where that counter position. Yeah. So what we're going to do, probably going to do two things, because your thoracics aren't too bad. Like yours is more lower. First thing I'm going to do is the arm swing. I'm going to change arm swing. Then I'm going to pattern it into, or tap it into the upper legs. So we'll just do arms first, nice and relaxed. So we want to be in that really neutral position through shoulders and scapulars. So we don't want scapulars square. We just want them in neutral. And at no point does the space between the scapulars close, all right? But this is going to give us a really good indication of the angle that I'm going to get you to swing on. So from here, all I want you to do is lift up your hands and wrists so they're in front of your pecs. Perfect. So the reason why I've got your hands so much higher than what both of you have is because I want the angle at the elbow, the inside of the elbow, to be at about 45 degrees. Any lower, this distance between glenohumeral joint and wrist becomes bigger than the humerus. Once it is longer, it's almost impossible to think elbow swing. Whilst you're here, so the wrists are here, but you're thinking about, if I look down at my forearms, they're making a triangle. You know, this is your running triangle. It is a forward and up, it is a back and up. If you go away from your angle, you feel the whole torso come with. Yep. Okay, we want to work with the grain. Higher, good. So I actually want you to feel like they're too high. Yep. Because you're so down here. Yep. Here, just focusing on this. Give yourself time and space to actually create lift. It's an upswing so that you can create lift. Don't worry about legs and feet. Run out to the orange cone and back, just thinking about this elbow swing. So you can already see Jamie's actually got a bit more femur drive without even thinking about it. So Charlie's overdoing a little bit. Yeah. Not quite as much, Charlie. Not quite as much. That's a bit better. All I want you to do is actually kind of draw a small little line, like half pec. Yeah, much better. So it is, it's about the amount of movement. You don't want to do an excessive amount. We're trying to do as little amount of movement for the same output or more output. Yeah, I want you to go new way first half into old way second half. So I actually want you to change back into old halfway so that you get a sense of what happens when you do go back. So swinging up towards the chin, there we go.
Trying to get them to feel both?
Yeah, so it's giving them like the proprioceptive awareness of what happens when they do go back to old. Because it's going to happen when they're out running. And so they go, oh shit, that's old, what do I do? Oh shit, I've lost my arms, or whatever it is, the cue that they're working on the time. It's about giving them, their own tools to be aware of. Because you know, it's like skill acquisition. It's almost impossible. You go, okay, golf. So you're into golf. Hold this, do this, swing this, and you do it, and then you're like, I'm not sure if I'm doing it or not. Like, what happened to my grip? How have I held it? But if I give you the tools to recognize when you're doing it or when you're not, then all of a sudden you can actually become your own coach that becomes autonomous.
It feels so shit. It's like I don't even want to do it. I'm like, for us, takeaway from today is get this.
That's the start point. So as I said, I was going to kind of tap into, but I think at the moment, that's not. And normally that's all I'll do is one thing at a time. Like I'll just go one by one by one by one by one, layers. So it's like, you get this done, make sure it's autonomous. Then when you feel really comfortable that's in, then we can go to the next piece. And then we can go to the next piece. And for the two of you, it'd be different for the next piece. Whilst it's the same thing to start with now, this is the start point. Then we start to go off into different channels depending on each individual.
Crazy. You sold me. I'll give you a buzz next week.
No, I'm going to do this for a couple of weeks. It normally takes about 15 to 20 runs before you get ready for the next one. Oh, you can call me to say good day. That's no problem.
Yeah,
15 to 20 runs.
Yeah.
Well, that was unreal. I got a lot out of it. Thank you for that. We're going to be heading off for a podcast now.
Cheers.
That will already be out by the time this is out, so make sure you head to the podcast, suss that out, because I'm sure there's going to be some fantastic takeaways in that as well. So
I'm giving away all my A game. I don't know what I got.
Podcast. Shit talk. That was good.
Sweet.
Really good.
I'm going to run out with my new technique to get the cones.